welcome to SaaS Leaders Lounge, the premier podcast for tech enthusiasts and industry leaders. I'm your host, Romone, and today we're embarking on an extraordinary journey into the intersection of AI and automotive innovation. We're honored to have Gary Brotman, the esteemed CEO of Secondmind, a company at the forefront of integrating artificial intelligence with automotive engineering. How are you, and where are you tuning in from?
I am great, Ramon. Thank you so much for having me today. I am dialing in, not really dialing in. I'm over the pixels here in Cambridge, England.
Fantastic. I know the area very well myself as well. But yeah, a pleasure to have to share. So, Gary, you're on a path at the moment with Second Mind. How have you seen AI evolve in the automotive sector?
Oh goodness. My background in AI from a day-to-day perspective is I'm about 10 years in. And my first interaction with AI or machine learning from an automotive perspective was when I was doing work at Qualcomm as the head of AI strategy and product planning. And I was responsible for ensuring that all of the Snapdragon chipsets in all markets, whether it was mobile or IoT or automotive, were capable of running deep neural networks on device. So you could do computational photography on a phone, or you
Yeah.
could do any sort of use cases in an automobile where you're trying to see what's going on outside of the vehicle or look at the driver internally. That was when I first got my taste of AI in automotive as a Qualcomm. It's quite different than what we do here, and I can go into detail there if you'd like.
One interest I had looking at your journey as well. I previously did music before diving into recruitment. I'm just keen to understand. I see your career spans both music and AI. Are you able to recount an experience where these two worlds converged in your professional journey?
Yeah, I think the inflection point for me was ages ago when I was working at a startup that got acquired by Yahoo called Music Match. And Music Match had a brilliant chief scientist who had developed some very interesting machine learning algorithms. At the time, we didn't call it machine learning, we just call it some collaborative filtering stuff. And it was technology that was used to help detect fraud at ATM machines. And what we were able to do was to first get permission from the listener to allow us to watch what they do. Like, what do you listen to? Do you listen to the songs all the way through? Do you skip? Like, and then look at all the behavioral information and see, well, what are the correlations? Are there artists or genre or instruments or different things or era? But there was no tagging of those. There was no metadata to say this is all about deep house, or this is all about classic rock. We just observed, and the data was there without being structured. And then once we had a profile for an individual, we would match that profile with the community. And at one point, we had 160 million registered users who were providing data about their listening behavior. There wasn't thumbs up or thumbs down. It was implicit. Just we watch what you do, and in return, we will give you great music recommendations that completely goes outside of the realm of genre or anything you would see as being a typical structure. And seeing the richness of the recommendations was what I likened it to when I was doing communications was this is your best friend in college who turned you on to everything. They were your tastemaker, and their tastes were really all over the place. They weren't boxed into specific groups. And that's what it really felt like. And to this day, I've never seen and experienced anything like it. But that was my first interaction with an algorithm and how it could actually enrich how I experience the things around me. And music was just that thing that I carried with me throughout my entire life.
Brilliant. No, thank you so much for the answer. I've also had a similar experience as well. I did a bit of managing artists after I actually was actively creating music. So again, being able to utilize such programs, it definitely benefits, as mentioned, the streaming that can go towards your artists naturally, as they say. But in terms of your experience with Second Mind so far, it would be great to dive into the latest breakthroughs and how these innovations are steering the future of automotive performance.
Sure. I'll start off at the base level and say that the concept of the vehicle the idea of what it means to either own or to rent or to share or to move around the world in a car and experience that is completely different than it was 10 years ago, and it'll be completely different in 5 years, at least for those that see the potential of the technology that's available to us today and how to leverage that and strip away all the process and the baggage of the past. Um, there's a term called the software defined vehicle that gets kind of thrown around. It's not a thing, it's more of a concept. And it's the concept of software being the thing that drives concept, it drives production, it drives capabilities, it drives driving experience. You're not thinking of hardware the way a car used to be. It's about the engine and the powertrain, and that was the center of the value and the utility of a car. That's no longer the case. That doesn't mean those things aren't important, but you have multiple powertrains. You have battery, you have hybrid, you have internal combustion engine, which won't go away anytime soon, no matter what we try to
Yeah,
do. So we have to make it as clean as possible. But software is more and more defining everything that happens in the vehicle, the design of the vehicle, which is far more complex than it ever has been. There's a billion lines of code that are supposed to be running in a future autonomous vehicle. But today there's between 150 million and 50 million, 150 and 300 million lines of code with 25 gigabytes of data being produced by all the sensors in the car every hour. So it's this amazing compute device that is riddled with all kinds of complexity as it runs on the road. Imagine how much complexity there is in just the design of not just the whole vehicle, but every little system and component in that car. And if you take a software approach, it gives you more latitude. You can be more nimble, you can iterate faster, and you don't have these long timelines of development that you typically do with a car of yesterday. And with the changing of regulatory constraints and consumer demands and what consumers want, and strategic areas of investment in automotive with autonomous driving or connectivity, because the car is always connected and always in touch around the cities that you're in and with you, shared riding and electrification, like everything is moving in the world of being electric.
yeah,
Those create a very high order of complexity that we've not seen in any engineering domain in any industry. Give you a sense of that. There's let's see, I can't remember the exact number. But let's say I think the amount of code running in a car today exceeds the volume of code that is running in 7 commercial jetliners. So it's
wow,
that amount. It's like that type of scale in the vehicle that is designed to protect us. It's designed to be efficient. It should be designed to be clean in its operation and sustainable for as long as possible. It's a world that I'd like to say that no engineering heavy industry has really faced. It's a completely different world. And our goal is to
yeah,
minimize all that complexity. Um, if you think about big data, like everybody talks about big data and AI, it's about deep learning. Like the more data you have, the better off you are.
yeah,
I'd agree that the more data that you have for things like autonomous driving, absolutely. Every pixel counts when you're trying to protect the precious cargo in the vehicle and people on the road. Right? Safety is the ultimate concern. So the more data you have to ensure safety, the better. But big data gets in the way of efficient design and development. So if you're trying to develop a concept of a vehicle, you can't possibly simulate everything, especially when you have so much data to deal with. You have to find a way to do more with less, and that's our USP is um, being very data efficient in the modeling of we do in machine learning and AI, efficient in the process. And what we end up with is saving our partners, whether it's automotive manufacturers or tier one suppliers or folks in the ecosystem that are helping to build these systems for the car makers, reducing the
yeah.
amount of time it takes to design and calibrate and do it with far less data.
Wow. I think, yeah, thanks for the deep overview about software defined vehicles. It's fascinating to know that kind of the amount of code running in the car is exceeding that of jetliners. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are not aware of that as well. Um, in terms of how much, as you've said, kind of the building of cars are affected by software, are you able to explain how Secondmind leverages AI within automotive engineering and kind of the specific impact it's made?
Sure. So I'll give you 2 examples. When a vehicle planner decides on what vehicle they want to ship next to a specific market for a specific demographic. They have a very coarse level view of what that vehicle should be. There's all the marketing requirements, and then those requirements get handed down to the engineering team, and the engineering team develops a very simple, and it's simple in the engineering sense, not necessarily simple in the human comprehension sense, but
Yeah.
it's a very coarse level concept of the vehicle. And even at that coarse level, that very rough version of the vehicle, it's not just about the design of it, it's everything inside of it. You start off with a handful of parameters that define that vehicle. They're the most important. And then you work your way down with each system and component and subsystem to bring more detail and fidelity to each of those things. This is what takes, because there's so many things that have to happen at the same time. What we do is at that very early stage of the concept of the vehicle, we can help an engineer and a designing team reduce the number of simulations that they have to go through to arrive at these starting points. And then as you go down the path of determining the feasibility and refining the shape and size and performance of each of these systems, we shine a brighter light on the stuff that actually matters. So we help strip away configurations and simulations that aren't going to help you at all, and
Yeah.
look for the data and model around the data that is the most interesting based on what the engineer is trying to accomplish. So in a perfect world, we're reducing the amount of time it takes to design these very complex systems and even the vehicle from a matter of maybe a couple of years to a handful of months, which is necessary for anybody that wants to compete in this market long term. What you want is you want to be able to build a car and design and build a car as fast as a mobile phone. It was like under 2
Yeah.
years. Today it's like 4 years. So being able to give the engineer a clearly defined space to play around in to determine the right configuration, and then when you get to prototyping, to be able to optimize the performance of those systems rapidly and do it much faster. Like today, it's about we have the time it takes to calibrate a motor, an inverter, or engine at the time that you have a prototype that is first ready on the assembly line. So with all that efficiency, you wind up with compressing the amount of time it takes a vehicle or take to design a vehicle and then put it into production. And along
Yeah.
the way, with their data reduction, for us, it's about 80% that we shave off the top. So doing more with less actually means something for us. You could take 20% of the data and get as good, if not better result than you would with the existing tools that are out there today. That's really the agent that reduces the amount of time. So if you can design and calibrate for performance and then you go through all your safety testing and get out on the road in less than 2 years, you can then compete. And with all of that, every step of the way, we're saving compute because compute's very expensive. And it's expensive from a cost perspective as well as the carbon footprint, depending on where your data center is. And then
Yeah.
the prototype savings, you don't have to do a lot of rework. You're not fabricating and then, oh, we have a found problem, go back to the drawing board. And then you have materials have been wasted. We're reducing the amount of prototypes that have to be built during this process. And ideally, all these things are on the road longer.
Brilliant. No, I think as you mentioned in regards to engineering, you're essentially reducing the noise, more speed in regards to years in production now to months, more quality, importantly less cost, especially with the prototype saving. You've given an overview. It's truly transformative. I think the synergy between AI and automotive engineering at Secondmind, it's definitely paving the way for unprecedented advancements within this industry that we're working within. But with AI's rapid deployment, an important subject that I'm always keen to cover within these sessions is confronting ethical concerns and biases in automotive AI. How is Secondmind ahead of this charge?
I'd have to say that there's our where we are in the market and the type of products that we develop. We don't deal with personally identifiable information or anything that deals with human beings, aside from the fact that we want to be able to provide an engineer with as much information as possible to make better decisions about design or performance optimization.
Yeah,
Um, I'll pull back away from automotive and say I've been doing, like I think I mentioned, I've been doing this for 10 years. And I started off in the deep learning world and I moved into this world that we're in, which is really more about probabilistic modeling and coin flips. It's kind of workhorse machine learning. And to that note, AI is not one thing. It's can think of it as a family tree of algorithms and techniques, right? It's not one tool. It's a toolbox, and the toolbox can be applied depending on the problem that you have. But everything that is done with machine learning starts with a human being. Right? There are no decisions that AI makes on its own. Algorithms have been trained by humans. They're refined by humans. They're updated by humans, and they're used by humans for good
Mm.
and bad. Right? It's like the human is the human is the X factor in this whole equation. And as long as we are addressing the challenges in society that were plaguing us or holding us back or hamstringing our development as a species, independent of the technology, then we're good.
Yeah,
Then we're fine. I mean, the technology isn't the problem. It is used again for good or for bad. But things like equality and having a leg up when it comes to hiring, and you don't want to be want an algorithm deciding who you are, or
yeah,
Google repeating the same mistake that they repeated previously when it comes to image generation with with either with a generative AI model or 10 years ago when they were identifying. There was just stuff that shouldn't be allowed to get out into the public
that's
domain
true. Yeah,
that is all a result of bias, intended or not. So yes, we need to make sure that the models are trained correctly, that they're not being designed in such a way that they discriminate. We also have to make sure that we're teaching our children and people around us to think more critically and not be lazy and grab the first headline that they see, because
yeah,
critical thinking is going to be the first kind of defense against misinformation and deepfakes. And if something looks funny, then interrogate it. If something looks completely off the mark, don't take it for what it is. Go dig and find a couple of sources. Um, I was a journalist by trade when I came out of university. I wasn't an engineer. And one of those things that principles that journalists carried with them was always have three sources, right? That isn't just about journalism. That should be in our day to day. Our kids should be
it's true.
looking for three sources when they see something on TikTok or on YouTube. But all these things have nothing to do with AI. AI can help advance your education, but it could also help propagate misinformation, as we've discussed. Um,
Definitely.
and if we're addressing the underlying symptoms and challenges, then I think we're in a better position. But if we think AI is the problem and also the solution, and it's not us, that's a problem.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree with what you've mentioned there. I think just working backwards from what you said, kind of someone using AI in the future is going to replace us, not necessarily AI. So teaching our children the correct thing, being those people in the future that are addressing issues in society, ensuring they're avoiding discrimination, ultimately just doing the right thing is going to have a positive impact on ethics within AI in the future. Yeah, I love the answer that you've given, I must say. In regards to kind of AI concepts, are you able to demystify a complex AI concept that's used at Secondmind for our listeners, please?
Oh, yeah, demystify. First, you'd have to understand, I think, what we do, and then demystifying it. So I think you mentioned a second ago. So we take a very pragmatic approach to this. Like we're not on the apocalyptic side, and we're not on the, cure world hunger and solve the climate crisis problems. Although you probably, if you can probably work towards both ends if you really use the algorithms the right or wrong way. We sit in the middle, and sometimes it's a little bit boring and unsexy. But if you take a pragmatic approach and say, I have different algorithms that are designed to solve for different problems. They do different kinds of math. Again, that's
Yeah,
all this is math, by the way. And we like to call it new software. We don't call it. I don't even like to use the term AI. We took it out of all of our marketing, and then all of a sudden it came roaring back with generative AI. We talk about machine learning, which is what does the work.
yeah,
Um, I'd say that if you have some idea of what it means to simulate something, like the term digital twin, whether you're technically savvy or not, like if you're creating a digital representation of a thing, how it looks, how it performs, that's a very data heavy thing to do. And if you think about trying to take an object or a product that you want to build that has 5 different parameters or characteristics, and then you want to add different things like I only want it to do this within this range. The dimensionality of that problem is like the number of potential simulations you could possibly do. The human brain can't comprehend it, nor can modern day systems comprehend when you get to something that is like 10 dimensions. And I couldn't even fathom that.
Yeah.
But what we're able to do is to sift through all of that noise and all the different possibilities and zero in with our machine learning on the things that actually matter. In the audio world, the signal to noise ratio, right? So we look for the signal and the noise. Wrong reference for machine learning, but that's the way I like to talk about it, because we're trying to find the things that matter. Most of the data is noisy and by and large kind of useless. Um,
Mm.
and then you can wind up finding a really good design of let's say a vehicle, like a hybrid system in a vehicle, or the motor. Like the motor is very expensive. Magnets are very expensive. They wear down. They're very subject to temperature, very sensitive to temperature. If you can reduce the size of the magnet in a motor by a reasonable amount, or even a fraction at scale, like millions of cars
Yeah.
out there, you've saved a lot. But demystifying, I just have to say it's math, and it's how you apply the math to the problem, and then how easy do you make how easy do you make it for engineers to use?
Yeah.
The last
And
bit's
that,
probably the demystifying.
yeah, I agree with yourself on that one. I've learned a lot from what you said. There's definitely, I think you've simplified such complex AI concepts, and it really helps our audience grasp the depth of Second Man's work. And earlier on, we spoke about quality, and we spoke about speed, we spoke about important costs being reduced. But looking ahead to the future, where do you see AI heading in the automotive industry, and what role will Second Man play?
So our vision, um, we see a world where every engineer has a second mind. And again, we may be touching on a few things we've already talked about, but if you treat AI the way it should be, and that's a tool that can help you do a better job, to be a better person, to learn more about the things that you're good at, to kind of sharpen your skills and maybe even expand your horizons. Um, we see not only providing engineers with this really core technology that we developed that solves some of these very complex design and performance challenges, but we're also integrating things like GPT-4 into our products to then help the engineer learn as they go. And we can see where, and this is not germane to automotive, but let's just use automotive as an example. You have different research and development groups, and you have different engineers with different talents. Somebody knows how to design something, and somebody knows how to calibrate something. And even within that, you've got different engine calibration and motor calibration, or you
Yeah,
have aerodynamics, and then you have somebody that's looking maybe at a wheel well versus the outside of the body. These are all individuals that are very specialized, have specialized talents in their domain, but they
yeah,
shouldn't have to really interact with each other, and they should have enough course level understanding that they can all march together in the same on the same journey and wind up at the end of that journey with a vehicle that is far more precise in its design and performance without having to know each other's job, but learn along the way. If you know, back to the ethical thing, it's not our decision how an OEM or a car maker, any of our customers, want to take advantage of the benefits, the value that they get from the efficiency and reinvest that value back into their business. Um, there's concerns about people losing their job in any industry, but what we see is that there's an opportunity to reskill, and we see this with our customers too. There's decades of engineering experience in the minds of the engineers that have been working in a different market, but maybe with more hardware than software. But that knowledge is hugely valuable, and it can't be left on the side of the road, no pun intended. Our customers actually want that to be leveraged in the process and carried forward as these new kind of electrified software-defined cars are designed more efficiently and out on the road and last longer. So we see being a very big change agent. That's why Second Mind as a brand exists. When I was asked to run the company, even before I was asked to run the company, I rebranded to Second Mind for the very reason that we had this great opportunity to be the second mind of the engineer.
brilliant. I think, yeah, the vision for the future that you have is inspiring. I think as we get more excited to think about innovative contributions. I reckon Secondmind will continue to make kind of AI and graphs in AI and the automotive landscapes. To move more towards a light-hearted sector, Gary, it would be great to know more about yourself and behind the title as a CEO. So we've got this quick fire section. Are you ready for me to dive into it?
By all means.
Brilliant. So do you prefer city life or the countryside?
I have to. I'm gonna have to pick the middle and say suburban.
Nice. Brilliant. Definitely answer we haven't had yet. So yeah, definitely interesting. Do you prefer hiking or surfing? If you do it
Surfing.
either. Brilliant.
I prefer surfing. I'm not good at it, and I haven't done it since I moved to England. But yeah, surfing.
Brilliant. Where did you do it before? If you don't mind me diving deeper into previous locations of yours.
Southern California.
Oh, beautiful. I must say, do you have any plans to return back there to do surfing, or is that not something of your interest on holiday events?
I don't know if I'm gonna surf again. I'm terrible at it. I've got other things that I'm interested in, like golf and darts and other stuff that keeps me busy, and I think I'm a little bit better at it.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've become a big fan of darts myself, as I've grown older. I think it's just a natural movement. Brilliant. Do you prefer iOS or Android?
Android.
Me too. Pen and
Oh,
paper or
really?
digital
I should
notes?
have
Oh,
asked.
sorry.
So we're saying iOS or purely for mobile phones, right?
Um, for processing, I would say,
Because I'm a Mac guy.
yeah.
I'm a Mac guy elsewhere, but I'm Android and mobile. That's Qualcomm did that to me.
Understood. Yeah, we're moving more towards that in our line of work as well. We found Macs are definitely more trustworthy as we've already replaced our laptops twice. But yeah, the free advertising there. So pen or paper or digital notes?
Digital notes.
Brilliant. Gym or outdoor exercise?
Outdoor exercise.
Nice. Last two questions. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Brilliant. And one for your nighttime exploits. If you do watch TV, do you prefer Netflix or your YouTube?
Netflix.
Brilliant. That's probably an easy answer there, I must say, depending on what you utilize YouTube for. But we like to keep a collaborative nature on the SaaS Leaders Lounge as well. So we always have our previous guests ask a question for the next, and you also have an opportunity to ask a question to our following. So previously we had a lady called Anna Rabakitsi. Her question to yourself is, what strategies can companies employ to ensure AI technologies are developed responsibly?
Um, I think it depends on where you are in your life cycle of embracing. The first thing to do is to start off small. Pick a project, understand how you're going to apply, like what type of AI or machine learning do you want to employ? Is it something that is widely available? Is it something that you have to develop yourself? But I think you start off with one project, work around that, and how you integrate the technology into the system, the governance around that, the policies associated with it. Um, yeah, there's so many different things to talk about in this context. It's a multifaceted kind of topic. But start small, pick a project, beat it to death, get it right, and then repeat.
Brilliant. That's a great answer, I must say. Anna's the founder of a company called Denio. They're leading the charge in kind of AI within API documentation, and they're still at a small growth stage. So if there's more information Anna would want to know, I'll be keen to point her in your direction. But for our next guest, we've got a lady called Angie Amar. She's the co-founder at an organization called Faculty. They build and deploy safe AI systems. What would your question be for Angie on our next podcast?
My question is not about AI. My question is about um, a key to succeeding as a startup. And that is, how do you encourage failure in your business?
Brilliant question. I think that's the fastest way to learn. So yeah, I look forward to that answer as well. But ultimately, before we sign off, Gary, are you able to share where our listeners can find more about your groundwork and work at Secondmind?
Sure. You can find Secondmind on LinkedIn. I believe we're also on the social media network formerly known as Twitter. Most of our stuff is on LinkedIn, though. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm not on X anymore. I jettisoned that. So I think LinkedIn's probably the best, or come to secondmind.ai. We also have a YouTube channel, although it's very research heavy. So you've got to have a lot of intestinal fortitude to sit through that if you're not a researcher.
Well, I'll put all of those links within our About Us section on the YouTube, Spotify, and also Apple. But thank you so much, Gary, for this engaging and insightful conversation. And to our listeners, stay tuned to the SaaS Leaders Lounge for more enlightening conversations with industry trailblazers just like Gary. Don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Until next time, keep exploring the endless possibilities of AI and automotive innovation if you've been inspired by this series. Goodbye for now, and thank you so much for your time, Gary. Take care.
Thank you, Ramon. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.